Public Safety Power Shutoff. Have a shared plan for you and your loved ones. Start today at sce.com/be prepared.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
A very busy night for LA's basketball teams. Let's start with the kids. USC beat Kansas State by 13 to win their season opener. 18 points and 6 assists for freshman sensation Isaiah Collier, the nation's #1 recruit in the class of 2023. UCLA rose to a 31-point win over St. Francis of Pennsylvania. USC's women's team won their season opener. They beat Ohio State by 9, 32 points, 6 rebounds, and 5 assists for freshman phenom Juju Watkins. The Lakers fell to 3-4 after a 1-point loss at Miami. The Clippers lost by 14 to the Knicks in New York. Nice game for James Harden in his debut. 17 points, 6 assists in 31 minutes. Monday Night Football, the Chargers beat the Jets in New York by 21. 2 touchdowns for Austin Eckler. The Chargers made it to 500 at 4-4. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580 invites you to join us in celebrating the season of giving by being part of the solution. As we enjoy great food, family, warmth, and well wishes in whatever our festive tradition may be, we share the beauty of the season by reaching out to the less fortunate. Please help us to help others with the KBLA Cover the Houseless Cozy Community Coat and Blanket Drive. All you have to do is drop off new or clean, gently used winter coats and blankets in the KBLA lobby during business hours. Now through December 20th, all of the coats and blankets will be donated to unsheltered individuals and families experiencing houselessness. Simply bring your donation to 4434 Crenshaw Boulevard in Los Angeles, near Vernon Avenue, from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. weekdays. That's 4434 Crenshaw in historic Leimert Park. During the holidays and every day, let's remember, we keep us safe. We keep us warm. We are the safety net, and together we can cover the unsheltered. Get caught up in the spirit of the season, the spirit of love. Make a difference with your friends at KBLA Talk 1580.
Touch, 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 touch. You say you're going through changes.
Aaliyah Bilal has the Midas touch. Everything she's touching these days is turning to gold, and I've been looking forward to this conversation. She is a finalist for the 2023 National Book Award for Fiction, and that is a really big deal for any book, much less for a debut book. Aaliyah Bilal's short stories follow Black American Muslims who were members of the Nation of Islam around the 70s. And get this, she didn't have an agent, that is, did not have an agent, or any publishing connections when she sent her work to Simon & Schuster after an open call for submissions. And here she is now on the Tavis Smiley Show as a finalist for the 2023 National Book Award for Fiction. The book is called Temple Folk, and I am delighted for the hour to talk to the author of that text, Aaliyah Bilal. Aaliyah, how are you today?
I'm fine, sir. Thank you for having me.
It is my great delight to have you, and congratulations on the book. Congratulations on being a finalist. Does this, I guess this is the best place to start, does any of this feel surreal for you?
It does. You know, I am so isolated. I don't really have a sense of how people in the world are reacting to this news. To me, I feel sort of like nervous, but also every day is pretty normal. Nobody at the grocery store seems to recognize me, so it's just it's very normal over here.
Yeah. When you said you're isolated, is that by choice or by chance? What did you mean when you said you're somewhat isolated?
I think the work really favors solitude, and so I tend to keep to myself. It's just the best circumstance to be receptive to creative energy, I feel, is when I am apart. So yeah, I tend to keep to myself.
Hmm. Is that your way? Is that your lifestyle, or is that the way you operate when you're in the midst of writing? So are you typically a person who stays to herself, or is that just when you're trying to push out your creative stuff?
Yeah, it's really when I'm being creative. I've been out to sea for so long. It's really time for me to come back to the shore. It's
Hmm.
pretty lonely out here, but no, I only do this when I'm being creative.
Yeah, yeah. So tell me, I try to give the audience some sense, even as I was laughing through it, and I was laughing because it's such an amazing story. I've written, I've never been a national book award finalist, but I've written 23, 24 books, a number of New York Times bestsellers. So I know something about what it feels like to push out one of these babies and to have it do well and get on the Times list. I know something of that, but your story is so phenomenal. I mentioned again moments ago that you didn't have an agent, you didn't have any publishing connections. You responded to an open call for submissions for Simon and Schuster, and here you are as a finalist for the National Book Award for fiction. So just tell me, take a moment to tell me a bit more about how that story developed. I just gave the short version of it, but how did that really roll out?
Yeah, I love telling this story. So I was in the midst of a pretty difficult personal circumstance, and I really was not in the world. I was very much to myself creating this work.
Hmm.
But my sister, who was like a lighthouse to me in those days, she would literally bring me food. She was really taking care of me. And one day, she sent me a screenshot of this announcement that this new editor at Simon & Schuster had, that he was looking for submissions and you didn't need to be agented, just send your work.
Hmm.
And my sister said, Leah, you really have to send him something. You're writing like it's a full-time job. Why don't you do it? And I looked, and there were thousands of people who'd responded to this announcement. And I said, oh my gosh, who am I to believe that he'll ever see this? But just in case my sister follows up with me and says, did you send it? I'll just put something together. And so I spent an hour putting together a manuscript, and I sent it off knowing for sure, he's never going to reply to me. About a week later, I was listening to the verses. It was Isley Brothers versus Earth, Wind, and Fire.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I'm a huge Isley Brothers fan. And so I'm just rocking out to the Isley Brothers, and I get this ding on my phone saying the editor was following me on Instagram. And I thought, that's so weird because there's nothing particularly cool about, what I have on my Instagram page. And so I just go back to listening to the music. And I looked in my email and there was a message from him saying all of these glowing things about my writing. And then I read the title after reading the email, and it said, I want to be your editor. And I think it was just so wonderful. It was just this wonderful moment for me where I'd been through this really hard time in life, and then it just felt in that instant like I was above the clouds and it was sunny again. So it was really wonderful.
There are three or four things that you've just said now that I want to interrogate when we come forward. This is going to be a great hour, and we've had some hard conversations of late, given all that's happening in the world, and it is just a relief for this hour to hear the beautiful story of how this brilliant writer has now come to the attention of the nation and indeed the world. She's a National Book Award finalist, and just to hear the joy in her voice, and you can hear the humility that comes with her genius. And I, again, am just honored to have this hour to talk about Temple Folk, the new book, the debut book from Aaliyah Bilal, right now on Tavis Smiley. And see what happens when you listen to the Isley Brothers? This stuff happens to you when you listen to the Isley.
Keeps me on the run. I try to play my music, say my music's too loud. I try talking about it, I got the big run around. And when I roll with the punches,
Seeking the truth, speaking the truth. This is the Tavis Smiley Show.
Escalade IQ. This the intro to the all-electric Cadillac, perfection like Zoom. And on a full charge, you get 450 miles without the stop. Haiku. This is what I do. Daddy fat intellect since '92. Linked all the way back, panoramic roof. Come with 24-inch rim standard. Ooh, why? Shout it, don't kill him. Cadillac diamond in the back, cold chillin'. And when I'm on attack, on the track is no ceiling. Sky's the limit. You hear me? You hear me? Straight drop, no parachutes. Lay lines like a longitude and latitude. Deal it, beloved. Clearly, we're hustling. Bustin', truckin'. Cadillac.
For more on the Escalade IQ, visit Cadillac.com. Available late 2024. GM estimate 450-mile range. On a full charge based on development testing and/or analytical projection. Consistent with CHA 1634 revision 2017 MCT. Range subject to change prior to production. Annual rates may vary based on service factors, including ambience, temperature, terrain, battery age, and condition loading, and how you use and maintain your vehicle.
The City of Los Angeles Civil Rights Department and its Reparations Advisory Commission are calling on you to be a part of something powerful. Join the Black Experience Study to share your experiences with the City of Los Angeles. We want to hear your stories. To join the study, join a focus group, or schedule an interview with us, visit www.blackexperiencela.com by December 31st. For more information, call 213-978-1845 or visit www.laisforeveryone.com.
As veterans, we're no strangers to helping others.
That's what we were taught, service before self.
But we do have one question for the veterans listening.
When is the last time you reached out for help?
If you or someone you know needs resources, whether it's for stress, finances, employment, or mental health, don't wait. Reach out.
Find more information at va.gov/reach. That's va.gov/reach.
Brought to you by the United States Department of Veterans Affairs and the Ad Council.
At Susan G. Komen, we believe that ending breast cancer needs all of us working together. Because if you've just been diagnosed and don't know where to turn, we've got you. If you can't afford the treatment you need, we've got you. And if you are driven to honor the loved one you've just lost, we have a place for you here. Because of you, we're supporting those who need help today while tirelessly searching for tomorrow's cures. Visit Komen.org and be a part of our Susan G. Komen community today.
Hello?
Man, where are you? I thought you were coming.
I can't. I'm in bed with the flu.
The flu? Whoa. Grandma's about to crowd surf. Man, I'll call you back.
Don't get stuck at home with the flu. A flu shot is safe, effective, and you can get it at the same time as your COVID-19 vaccine. A flu shot is the best way to prevent the flu and its potentially serious complications. Don't get flu FOMO. Learn more at getmyflushot.org.
Brought to you by the AMA, CDC, and the Ad Council.
Let's get back to more of this rich dialogue with Tavis Smiley.
It's your thing. Do what you wanna do. I can't tell you who to sock it to. It's your thing. Do what you wanna do. I can't tell you who to sock it to.
I was saying a moment ago that when you listen to the Isleys, good things can happen. Aaliyah Bilal was listening to the Isleys. She loves the Isleys and was listening to them when she got word from Simon & Schuster. They were going to take her book. It is now out. It's called Temple Folk. It's her first book, and she's a finalist for the National Book Award for Fiction. And so because she loves the Isleys, and I love the Isleys, and everybody loves the Isleys, we're going to play some Isleys. Good excuse to play some good music throughout this hour. So we're going to play a couple more Isley tracks. Ron Isley and Ernie Isley were guests on this program not long ago, in fact. Love Ron, love Ernie. Of course, we just lost one of their brothers not long ago, and so I know they're still in grief about having lost their brother. But the Isleys have done some great music. Hard to tap that soundtrack, to match that soundtrack. For those who saw that Versus between the Isleys and the Elements, Earth, Wind, and Fire, was a good one. And so that's what Aaliyah was listening to when she got word. So maybe what you should do is listen to some Elements or some Isleys, and something good to happen to you today, like it did for Aaliyah. So Leah, you said a couple things a moment ago that I want to come back to right quick. And let me preface this by saying I certainly understand the way you framed it and phrased it. If you don't want to talk about the hard time that you were enduring when you pushed this book out and your sister was sort of taking care of you. So I understand that, and you don't need to go there if you don't feel comfortable going there. But I do want to ask you to look back on that, because clearly what came out of that was this book, Temple Folk, that everybody's talking about now. So whether you go there or not, can you give me some sense of how you look now back on that moment and what that moment wrought for you in your life, if that makes sense?
Yes, sir. I look back on that time and see it as a great blessing in my life. It was a clarifying time, and it was a time for me to sort of make some decisions about how I wanted to spend the rest of my life, now that all of these new realities were front and center for me. And everybody knows what I went through because it's all the same storm. You know, it looks different in everybody's life, but it's the same storm. And when the storm comes, we learn to greet it with grace, to try our best to survive it. And if we do survive it, to learn whatever we can from the storm and take those lessons forward. And so when I look back at that time, I think, you know, I really did the best that I could, not to let circumstances bring me down, but to lift me up into some greater energy.
I want to ask you in a moment what you learned about riding the storm, as you put it. My mind, your book is about Muslim Americans and certainly those who were members of the Nation of Islam around the 70s. We'll get into the book in a moment ago. So I am not a Muslim. I'm a Christian. But it reminded me, you're talking about the storm, of a song we sang in my church, a little gospel song that says, there's a storm out on the ocean, and it's moving this away. If your soul is not anchored in Jesus, you will surely drift away. Even if you're not a believer, if you take the word Jesus out, the point is that there are storms in our lives that are coming. And if you ain't had one yet, you ain't lived long enough. But trust me, there is a storm out on the ocean, and it's moving toward you. And if you're not anchored to something, then you will surely drift away. And for many people, that anchor is Jesus or whatever they believe. But you got to be anchored to something when these storms in your life come. Otherwise, you drift away. So what did you learn about what you were anchored to? And what did you learn about riding the storm when it came? Because to your brilliant point, the storms look different for us. But every one of us has to endure these storms in our lives, Aaliyah.
Oh, that is so true and poignant. What I learned about myself is that I have a lot of fortitude and power, you know, that it wasn't my nature to let circumstances turn me into an ugly person. You know, I had an inner strength that was there guiding me all along, telling me what I needed to do to bring myself out of that state that I was in. And the work really helped ground me in something beautiful. It was a space in my life where I had control. And, you know, I could, in the few hours every day that I was working, I could occupy myself with something other than my troubles. And every day I just spent a few hours focused on beauty, focused on these gifts that honestly were really flourishing in that space. And so again, like I look at it, I look back on it and know in the moment that it was painful, it was very heartrending, and then so many things. But looking back, I just see that the beauty of that opportunity that I had to really just focus on my gifts.
This is the problem. You talk to great writers. Every time they say something, you want to interrogate it because they keep dropping these gems, these jewels, or dropping bars, as they say, and I got to go back and pick them up. I want to ask you, again, in retrospect, what you learned in that moment, to use your phrase, about resisting becoming an ugly person. I was counseling a friend of mine just the other day, and I think, you know, when you endure something, you learn something from it, and you pass those lessons on to help others navigate their lives, not with arrogance, but with humility. And I was talking to a friend of mine the other day who was asking advice and sharing some drama that they were enduring. And I was sharing with them a chapter that I wrote in one of my books, and the chapter is titled, "Even When We Are Justified, We Have to Remain Dignified." That life puts us in situations sometimes where we are justified in being ugly. We are justified in responding in kind. But even when you're justified, you want to remain dignified. Not always easy to do. But even when you're justified, you want to stay dignified. Here you come now talking about how you had to resist this temptation, this pull to become an ugly person. What did you learn about how to resist being an ugly person?
It really wasn't so much about resisting it. It was allowing my natural personality to come forward. It's not within me to turn a negative circumstance and allow it to make me ugly. I do think that personality and temperament will dictate how each individual responds to circumstances in life. And it's really not my place to judge how people, react when bad things happen. But something that I learned about myself is that I will try to convert adversity into beauty. It's just part of my nature. And I would recommend it, certainly. I wouldn't want anybody to go down a route where, something bad happens and you feel the need to act out. There are some lessons that we can learn, even if we don't survive the storm bodily. We can triumph in the spirit.
Everything she says is prose. I'm scribbling stuff as fast as I can because it's so rich already, and I'm just 20 minutes in. But I love that line that about turning adversity into beauty. That's the challenge. That is the challenge for each and every one of us. Can you turn the adversity you are up against right now? I don't know who I'm talking to, but I'm talking to somebody. Whatever adversity you are encountering right now, the challenge is to find a way, as Aaliyah Bilal just said, to turn that adversity into beauty. She did it, and you can do it too. Turn the adversity into beauty. Have you always wanted to be a writer? Was that always you think your calling, your vocation? And I ask that in part again because we established earlier some of this writing you were pushing out while you were going through this hard time, as you referenced it. So has writing always been your muse?
I would say so. I actually began my creative and artistic life as a violinist and violist, but I was never better than mediocre, frankly, at those art forms. I can read the notes, but it doesn't sound like music when I play. And it was always this heartbreaking part of my life because all of the kids I was surrounded with were these excellent, virtuosic violinists and violists, and there I was playing like, it sounded just horrible. And I found the weird thing that happened to me is I was always bookish, but when I got into high school, I always won all the essay contests that I entered. I won every single one of them first place. And I remember I was sharing some writing with a friend of mine, and she told me I was 18 years old. She said, "Girl, you're a writer." And I thought, okay, well, what if I didn't know what to think of it at the time. I wasn't thinking in terms of career. I was like, how do I get into college? What do I want to do with my life? But as I went later into my 20s, it became more and more clear that everything about my personality, everything about the way that my life was coming together, that I really was coming into this writerly identity. And it's just been a slow process of accumulating the skills that I needed to do it at a very high level.
I was laughing internally, Aaliyah, when you were telling that story because I had a similar moment in my life. I was a baseball player, and I was a little better than you. I was a little better at baseball than you were at the violin or the viola. I was a pretty decent baseball player, but it finally occurred to me in my early high school years that as decent a baseball player as I was, and I had dreams of being a first baseman in the major leagues. I grew up in the Midwest, and when I was growing up, the Cincinnati Reds won 2 World Series back-to-back, the Big Red Machine. And so I had dreams of being a first baseman in the major leagues. That was my first big dream in life. And it finally sort of occurred to me as a freshman heading into my sophomore year that I didn't think. I was a little better than mediocre, but I wasn't good enough to go pro. And I look back on that. I don't know how I had the wisdom at such a young age to realize that I wasn't good enough then to become a pro, and I didn't want to chase this dream for the next 10, 12 years trying to get to the pros. And I focused on what I was good at. It happened to be running my mouth. And so I got off the baseball team, and I joined the speech team, and I joined the debate team, and the rest, as they say, is history. I ended up on a debate scholarship at Indiana University, and here I am all these years later, the media person that I have become. But it was born of a decision that I made early on when I realized I wasn't really good enough to do this at the highest level. And again, I'm just grateful to God that I kind of figured that out at an early age, as opposed to chasing this pipe dream that likely would never have happened for me because I wasn't good enough to do it at that level, and I didn't want to chase that for years. So I changed my direction to the thing I was good at. You changed your focus to your writing, and here you are, a National Book Award finalist for fiction. So there's something, again, this conversation in so many ways is instructive and informative, and I think inspiring and empowering for people listening, because we ain't even got to the book yet. I'm just talking about her life and what brought her to this book that we'll talk about for the rest of the show, rest of this hour, that is. Again, if you tuned in just now, her name is Aaliyah Bilal. The book is called Temple Folk, and she, in her very first book, her debut book, Without an Agent, is a finalist, again, for the National Book Award for Fiction, and that is a big, big deal. And her name is Aaliyah Bilal, and I'm honored to have her on this program. Aaliyah, let me ask you this right quick, and we'll move forward and get more directly into the text. The first thing that jumped out at me about this, excuse me, is that the Nation of Islam does not often appear in literature, and I ain't talking about The Final Call. I'm talking about literature about them. They don't often show up in literature. They don't show up as protagonists. They are not the subject of a lot of stuff. And I think, this is my word, not yours, there's a risk in writing these beautiful stories that you've written, but still a risk writing about the Nation of Islam, again, given that not a lot of stuff is written about them. So tell me how that decision came to be.
Well, I needed to write this book for my own sake because this is part of my family history.
Mm-hmm.
And just growing up in this culture, I'm obviously African American, but I don't relate in a very uniform way to what's projected in the media about African American life. And I just felt there was this huge gap in representation that I needed to fill, I should say. And the longer, as I have spent on earth, the more desperate I have been for stories that reflected my own life. And so that's part of why I couldn't really think about the risks. I felt that my life depended on telling these stories. Whatever the risks were, I could tolerate that as long as I could get the stories out.
Mm-hmm. When you say that you had to do it for yourself and to tell stories that you were familiar with, does that mean that even though it's a book of fiction, that any of this stuff is in some part autobiographical?
No, sir, not in any way, shape, or form. I just feel it's beneath the craft to write about real people's lives. Mm-hmm. And you can sort of tell when you're reading a book when the details come from the life because the writing becomes very granular, mm-hmm. and it gets really muddled. Plot sort of goes out of the door. And so I think that it's pretty clear that the stories are invented. They're completely invented, but they are grounded in this history.
And a rich history it is, and we'll delve more into that history when we come forward. The book is called Temple Folk. The author of that book is our guest in this hour. Her name is Aaliyah Bilal. I repeat once again because I'm so happy for her. She is a finalist for the 2023 National Book Award for Fiction. It is her debut book, so don't tell me what can't happen when you assign yourself to do the work that you have been called to do. More with Aaliyah Bilal when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
Hope, agency, dignity. This is Tavis Smiley.
Can you dig it? Come on!
What's up, party people? It's your favorite MC's favorite rapper, MC Light here. And we're celebrating 50 years of hip-hop, authentically powered by Cadillac. And we're going to take it way back to where it started. It was only fitting that hip-hop began with teenagers at a back-to-school jam in the rec room of a South Bronx apartment complex by an 18-year-old brother. By the way, I'm also sure he had a Cadillac parked outside. He noticed the energy on the dance floor when he switched between two turntables, extending the beats, repeating the breaks, and never losing the rhythms. And that was the birth of hip-hop. And from that moment, it took off.
For more on how Cadillac is celebrating hip-hop's 50th, visit Cadillac.com/audacity.
Thank you for joining us, everyone. It is a Tuesday, November 7th. I'm Mike Moore. Now here's the latest from the Black Information Network. The U.S. Supreme Court is set to hear arguments today in a case over whether the government can deny access to guns for those subject to domestic violence protection orders. It stems from a case out of Texas where a man with a restraining order against him was suspected in multiple shootings. The High Court's decision is expected next year. A trial date has been set for 4 of the 5 Memphis, Tennessee police officers charged in the beating death of African-American Tyree Nichols during a traffic stop. The 4 were in court Monday, where a judge said the trial will start August 12th of 2024. While they have pleaded not guilty, that 5th officer changed his plea to guilty last week. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
Southern California Edison. Make plans to stay safe in an emergency or a public safety power shutoff. Have a shared plan for you and your loved ones. Start today at sce.com/be prepared.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
A very busy night for LA's basketball teams. Let's start with the kids. USC beat Kansas State by 13 to win their season opener. 18 points and 6 assists for freshman sensation Isaiah Collier, the nation's #1 recruit in the class of 2023. UCLA rose to a 31-point win over St. Francis of Pennsylvania. USC's women's team won their season opener. They beat Ohio State by 9, 32 points, 6 rebounds, and 5 assists for freshman phenom Juju Watkins. The Lakers fell to 3-4 after a 1-point loss in Miami. The Clippers lost by 14 to the Knicks in New York. Nice game for James Harden in his debut. 17 points, 6 assists in 31 minutes. Monday Night Football, the Chargers beat the Jets in New York by 21. 2 touchdowns for Austin Eckler. The Chargers made it to 500 at 4-4. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. Let's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
Make your next lunch a lunch combo from Buffalo Wild Wings. Choose from wings, street tacos, and more. Head to Buffalo Wild Wings or order online at buffalowildwings.com at participating locations for a limited time, Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Price and participation vary by location. Taxes extra. See menu for details.
November is National Runaway Prevention and Homeless Youth Awareness Month. Join the Sanctuary of Hope all month long at community events to tackle this issue. For more info, go to www.thesoh.org. www.thesoh.org.
We've got a lot to talk about.
Race, culture wars, political turf battles, criminal justice, and injustice. The courts. These are the conversations you won't hear elsewhere. My guests are leading journalists, celebrities, and sports figures, elected leaders, and influencers. They aren't afraid to get into it and say the quiet part out loud. With Ariva Martin in real time, your commute just became the most engaging part of your day. Tune in weekdays from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. or find us on YouTube. Ariva Martin in real time, when you want it straight, no chaser.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
Joey from Vermont, a farmer trying to get through the winter. Adriana from South Carolina, a single mother living paycheck to paycheck. Liam from Ohio, an injured father struggling to provide for his family. Hi, I'm Shanola Hampton, and I support the Feeding America network of food banks because they help provide over 6 billion meals to people in need each year. Learn more at feedingamerica.org.
1 in 4 Americans today are living with a disability. I'm one of them. People with disabilities are extremely talented, resilient problem solvers that have so much to offer. And we've got a trusted ally on our side, an organization we can rely on. Easter Seals. Easter Seals is leading the way to full equity, inclusion, and access to healthcare, employment, and education for people with disabilities, families, and communities. That's my Easter Seals. Make it yours.
Learn more and get involved at easterseals.com.
Thinking about hosting a podcast and don't know where to start? Morris Media Studios has you covered. We're a professional podcast and voiceover studio located in Leimert Park. We specialize in recording and live streaming audio and video podcasts. Let us help you set up, record, and distribute your podcast. Hosting a podcast is a great way to bring awareness to your business, product, or good cause. For more info, visit morrismediastudios.com or give us a call at 323-815-4204.
Sounds different, huh? This is Tavis Smiley.
Can't believe it's true that I'm so into you, that I don't know where I'm going. I never felt this way before. All I wanna do is to love you, baby, behind closed doors. Ooh, I want such a loving, baby, and I can't let go. I want such a loving, baby, and I can't let go. I want such a loving, baby, and I can't let go. Don't let go. All of the good times that we shared.
Alia Bilal was listening to the Isleys when word came that Simon & Schuster was going to accept her manuscript. And that manuscript is out. It's a book called Temple Folk, and Alia is now a finalist for the 2023 National Book Award for Fiction. And so in tribute to her, and her love for the Isleys, we've been playing some Isleys throughout this hour. And they sound as good now as they ever did. And Alia Bilal is our guest in this hour, and I'm delighted to have her on. Again, I want to go right inside the book, The Temple Folk, and I was asking a moment ago how you came to write about these black Americans who were Muslims and members of the Nation of Islam around the 70s, and the risk that one takes in doing that, given what we know that people think of when they think of the Nation of Islam. And Elijah Muhammad, and why there's not been a whole lot written about them in literature. And I want to ask now, speaking of their lived experiences and your lived experiences, do black Muslims grapple with faith and family and freedom in ways different from the rest of us black folk in this country?
I think the ways are only distinct because of the cultural differences that come or that are attached to the belief system.
Mm-hmm.
In all other ways, I think that we are grappling with these issues in a similar way. You know, we're Black people, and so we still face the same kinds of discrimination that other African Americans face, but we are confronting that through this lens of Islam on the one hand, and then on the other hand, of Black nationalism, where there's a bit of a strident presentation before these social realities.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think the signature is authentically American, but culturally distinct.
Mm-hmm. This book obviously centers around 10 stories that contribute to these diverse narratives about Black life. What do you think that readers are going to learn about the complexity of Black life? To your point, I mean, these Black Muslims are still Black folk, but there are some distinct differences about the ways in which they have to navigate their journey. And I'm wondering, given that those distinct differences and these diverse narratives, what you hope readers will take away about Black Muslim life in America during this time period, specifically related to the Nation of Islam.
Yeah, I think one of the most important takeaways from the book is that these are just African American people who are trying to live. They're just trying to make it in America with some dignity, with some grace, with a sense of the divine. And also another important thing that this book contributes is that it offers an insight into the experiences of women in this movement. There are lots of stories that do get told about the Nation of Islam, but we tend to focus on these larger-than-life figureheads of the movement. And so we see repeated narratives of the lives of Malcolm X. We see multiple narratives of the life of Muhammad Ali. Oftentimes people talk about Elijah Muhammad, but it's very, very rare that these works, these films, et cetera, that we are engaged with ever focus on the lives of African American Muslim women. And we have a particular take on this history. And so I'm very proud to say that I've contributed the first stories about that go into some depth about the lives of African American Muslim women.
You frame it as a particular take. What is, to your mind, that particular take that women bring to this narrative, to this story that you hope you put forth on the pages of this book, Temple Folk?
Well, I think we encounter many of the same phenomena that women in the Christian church encounter, where we make up large numbers of the membership, but oftentimes our voices go unheard. And so the question can be, what are the interior lives of African American women in religious spaces? We've seen narratives that explore what that looks like in Protestant Christian spaces, but never before have we really gotten an opportunity to really look at the lives of African American Muslim women and see how they are encountering, I should say, these realities of patriarchy, let's say, head covering. What are the politics of hair covering in Muslim communities? How do women negotiate that? And things like this. So there are lots of, I think, subjects that people bring to Muslim women. How do you feel about your status relative to what if your husband wants to take another wife? These are the kinds of questions that you get. And I think this book will do something to help answer some of those queries.
Yeah, I am not human and divine. No surprise there. I'm just human. And in this human space, this human body that I inhabit, I am trying every day to shrink the distance between what I say and what I do. I want to always be about the business of doing what I say and saying what I do, and not having much space between those two things. And one of the things that you do beautifully in this book is sort of through these characters get at this issue of the things that we profess and the things that we practice. I wonder if you might say a word about that without giving too much away. It's always hard when you're talking about fiction because you can't give the story, you can't give these stories away. But I wonder if you can say a word about that and the way you approach it. This issue that we all wrestle with of professing certain things, but our praxis oftentimes is different.
Absolutely. Well, I think it just goes to the core of our nature as human beings. We can say that we believe lots of things, but we have a personality, and personality is really primary in the way that I conceive of the self. And religion comes into our lives like clothing. It's something that we adorn ourselves with, but that we can try to approximate some kind of adherence, but we're only getting close. We never quite embody the beliefs. We do our best. And so people are going to be themselves in religious spaces. So if you have any sort of predilection, you'll just be a Muslim person with that predilection, or you'll be a Christian person with this other predilection. And I think if it were otherwise, the stories wouldn't really be fun to read, because we'd be talking about automatons just living out these beliefs without any complexity. So yeah, that's just part of the deal.
Yeah. Her name is Alia Bilal. Her book is called Temple Folk. It is a finalist for the National Book Award for Fiction 2023, and there's a great deal more I want to unpack with Alia when we come forward. I've been dying to ask her. I wouldn't say dying. I'm not dying, but I'm anxious to ask her. Thank God I'm not dying. But I'm anxious to ask her about her editor, and well, I'll tell you why when I come forward. It's fascinating what she's produced here, and to have entered, to responded rather to an open call for submissions, and to end up with a book that's this beautifully produced. With an editor who apparently got it. I know nothing of her editor, but to have an editor who gets it. I mean, it's hard enough to get editors to get Black life, period. But you start writing about Black American Muslims in the Nation of Islam around the 70s, and you hope to find an editor who gets that and who can relate to the humanity in those stories. That's a big deal in this industry, trust and believe. We'll talk about that when we come forward. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
What's your quarrel with the world? You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
What is dedication?
My biggest fear in the middle of my addiction was that my kids wouldn't have a father. And I started thinking, you know what? This isn't my story. I definitely had to become a better man to be a better father. It's important to me that my kids are empowered and truly believe that if they can think it, they can do it.
That's dedication. Visit fatherhood.gov to hear more. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Joey from Vermont, a farmer trying to get through the winter. Adriana from South Carolina, a single mother living paycheck to paycheck. Liam from Ohio, an injured father struggling to provide for his family. Hi, I'm Shanola Hampton, and I support the Feeding America network of food banks because they help provide over 6 billion meals to people in need each year. Learn more at feedingamerica.org.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a whole lot to talk about.
Hi, Maisha Cairo here, KBLA, live at Chase Bank on Crenshaw and Vernon for the In This Together tour with female business owners, a day of empowerment, community panels, and best of all, tips on building business from marketing to capital. Today I spoke with Tatiana, a community manager for JP Morgan Chase.
Thank you so much. Yes, my name is Tatiana Roberts. I am a community manager for JP Morgan Chase. I have to honestly say that this has been the most fulfilling position that I've ever had, where I get to give back to the community because I saw my mom's struggles. That's really what fuels what I do to make sure that the community has all the access to the resources that my mother didn't have.
So for the mother who's in business, what are 3 quick tips you can give to ensure that they're on the right path to accessing financial support from a bank like Chase?
Say number 1, just make sure that you're checking your credit on a consistent basis and taking action to either fix your credit, maintain your credit, or rebuild your credit. The second thing would be budget. I know that B word is kind of like ugly for, right? A lot of people don't like that B word, but it has to be done. We need to tell our money where to go. The last thing is to build a network of supporters that are going to lift you up.
The community building here in Crenshaw is that network. So visit the Chase Community Center on Crenshaw and Vernon. Meet a banker today. Tell them about your business. I'm Maisha Cairo in the community for KBLA with JP Morgan Chase.
Mom's early Alzheimer's diagnosis was hard to take.
And when I left the oven on, we decided together that it was time to see a doctor and make a plan.
Early detection gave us more time to seek out information and support as a family.
If you or your family are noticing changes, it could be Alzheimer's. Talk about seeing a doctor together. For more information, visit alz.org/time to talk. A message from the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
Ready to re-examine your assumptions and expand your inventory of ideas? More of Tavis Smiley coming your way right now.
Ali Bilal is our guest in this hour. Her book is called Temple Folk, and we have been empowered and enriched by this conversation already, and I want to get a few more things out before I lose her at the top of the hour. So you heard me mention a moment ago, Alia, that I wanted to ask about your editor, because when I got this and started going through it, I'm like, okay, having done this a few times, she has an editor that appears to have gotten it. And again, when you consider that you were responding to an open call for submissions, you end up with somebody working with you on this book to bring Temple Folk forward. Again, I know all too well the travails and the troubles that one has trying at times to get certain editors to get the stories they're trying to tell. You got 10 short stories here. But to really wrestle with the humanity of these characters, of these black characters, isn't always easy. Can you tell me a part about that journey and apparently how fortunate you were in the end?
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, Yadon Israel is my editor, and he has a really unique story. I don't know if it's not really my place to really tell his story, but he is a African-American Jewish man. And so he knows a lot about what it means to be a religious minority in Black America. And he comes from an urban environment, Brooklyn, New York. And so he's been exposed to this culture, because the Black Muslim experience is pretty spread out, but it really is a northern urban sort of phenomenon. And like, you have to be in a Washington, D.C., in a Chicago, in a Detroit, in a New York City to really see these communities and all of their dynamism. And so I think he was probably just curious, having grown up around these spaces with like 5%ers, Nation of Islam people, Sunni Orthodox Muslims, and said, well, there's this manuscript that's finally addressing that. And so I think it was just divine, the coming together of somebody like me and somebody like him.
Yeah. These obviously, these 10 short stories make up this book, Temple Folk. It's your debut collection, but is there a way that you would define the collection? Is there a through line here? Just trying to give, again, without giving too much away, giving readers a sense of what they're going to see when they get inside the pages of Temple Folk. Is there a through line? How would you describe the collection, as it were?
Absolutely. I think there are a few. The major one is really my attempt to try to situate the African-American Muslim experience as a part of the larger story of African-American religion. And I'm looking at Elijah Muhammad's movement, the Nation of Islam, and how after his death, it transforms into a Sunni Orthodox movement. And people are evaluating their memories of their times in the Nation of Islam during the 1960s and 70s. And then their children who only know Sunni Orthodoxy, they are looking at their lives within this religious community, wondering how they are going to renegotiate their relationship to their faith as they discover things about themselves. And so that's a major through line, just how does this movement connect to the larger story of African-American religion, and looking at African-American Muslims through the history of the Nation of Islam and Elijah Muhammad's movement.
Our remaining moments with Alia Bilal when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
Interrogating and unpacking. That's what we do around here. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
If you're like me, 60 and retired, making ends meet, especially here at the supermarket and drugstore, is tough. I'm so blessed to have found benefitscheckup.org. It's a free and confidential website from the National Council on Aging that connected me to $1,200 a year in programs that help pay for food, medicine, utilities, and more. Maybe it can help you. benefitscheckup.org.
My daughter was diagnosed with a rare malignant rhabdoid tumor on the spine. They sent her straight to St. Jude. My hope was gone. But when you get there, everyone's like, hey, we're not going to give up. And when you see other people not giving up on your child, that makes all the difference in the world. When I found out I didn't have to pay, I was just grateful. They saved my baby's life.
Finding cures, saving children. Learn more at stjude.org.
Hey there, Los Angeles. This is James Lucky Jr., publisher and editor of Los Angeles News Observer. Are you hungry for news that matters to you in the African-American communities of Los Angeles? Well, buckle up, because we got the scoop you've been craving. Stay in the know and never miss a beat with our free weekly publications conveniently available near you. Or hop on the digital wave and become an exclusive subscriber at OGNSC.com. Don't forget to join the party on Instagram and Twitter at OGNSCINC for behind-the-scenes access and sizzling updates. No more FOMO. Let's stay informed, connected, and empowered together.
Meet LA's most affordable health plan. This open enrollment season, LA Care Covered is proud to offer the lowest cost health plans in Los Angeles County, featuring zero cost preventive services to help you achieve your wellness goals. Be part of the region's largest HMO network, featuring UCLA Health, Optum, and allied physicians without breaking the bank. We are here to help. Call us at 855-222-4239 for enrollment assistance. That's 855-222-4239. LA Care Covered. Your wellness, our mission.
Los Angeles, black men are dying from preventable health causes and diseases, but you can be part of the solution. Join us Saturday, November 11th at the Michelle and Barack Obama Sports Complex next to Dorsey High for the African American Male Wellness 5K Walk and Run. Walk for your brother, walk for your father, walk for your son, walk for your uncle, walk for yourself. This is a free, family-friendly event for the entire community. We'll have free health screenings, vendors, kids' activities, and more. We'll see you at 8 a.m.
Discover, this is Danny.
Hi, it's Jen Coolidge. I just want to thank you for making me feel so special. I earned cash back on debit for my dinner party groceries.
That's great. But with Discover Cashback Debit, we give everyone cash back on everyday purchases. Anything else I can help you with?
Are you hungry? 'Cause everyone left after the asparagus sorbet.
Introducing Discover Cashback Debit, a checking account with cash back. It pays to Discover. Eligibility and terms at discover.com/cashbackdebit. Discover Bank, member FDIC.
Who do you trust to get at the truth? Tavis Smiley. That's who. The conversation continues right now.
It does indeed. Just a few minutes left here, about 3 minutes left with our guest, Alia Bilal. Her book is called Temple Folk. It is her debut book. And for a debut, as I've said repeatedly, to be a finalist for the National Book Award 2023 for fiction is a big deal. And I believe, Alia, the book award winners are announced next Wednesday, so just a few days away, about a week away from the winners being announced. But it seems to me on so many levels that you've already won. I'm rooting for everybody black. I want everybody black to win. So I'm pulling and praying for you next Wednesday. But it seems to me, given the story that you shared with us in this hour of what you were going through, what you had to endure, that difficult time of your life, responding to an open call for submissions. I mean, the story itself is just an amazing story. And on so many levels, it seems to me you've already won. That's my read. How are you processing this moment?
I don't really know what to feel. I really don't know what to feel. I'm very, very grateful. And because of the controversial nature of the book, or the perceived controversial nature of the book, I didn't have that many hopes, frankly, even going into the process. I was just so grateful to have been plucked from obscurity and published in the first place. I didn't really know how far it could take me. And so I'm trying to be present in the moment and to enjoy this experience. I have some hope, but, with everything happening in the world, we don't know. And so, I'm just trying to connect with people that see the work for what it is. It's really beautiful. It's not trying to malign anyone associated with the movement. It's really just trying to tell the stories of people who were associated. And there was a diversity of opinions, and I just would like people to see the beauty that I meant to share with you. Not everybody is going to love this book, but I do think that this will meet the needs of certain readers.
Yeah, well, a lot of folk are loving it, including yours truly, and I've been honored by the opportunity to spend this hour with you. She mentioned being plucked from obscurity. She is obscure no more. When you put out your first book and you get this kind of high praise and you are a finalist for the National Book Award for Fiction, you are obscure no more. And so it's the first. It will not be the last. That I'm talking now about the book. It's the first book and not the last. And I hope not the last conversation that I will be honored to have with Alia Bilal in the coming months and years as she continues to push out what I am certain is going to be some pretty amazing work. Congrats on the first one. And I look forward to talking somewhere down the road. All the best to you, and thanks again for the conversation. I deeply appreciate it.
Thank you. I'm very grateful.
Good to have had you on. More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
Thank you for joining us, everyone. It is a Tuesday, November 7th. I'm Mike Moore. Now here's the latest from the Black Information Network. The U.S. Supreme Court is set to hear arguments today in a case over whether the government can deny access to guns for those subject to domestic charge in the beating death of African-American Tyree Nichols during a traffic stop.